The event will begin shortly. In the meantime, we invite you to prepare your favorite hot drink and check the technical requirements. Please turn on your camera and turn off your microphone. To ask questions, use the raise hand feature during interaction time, or type your question in English in the chat box. This evening, we have a surprise for you from our friends of Peregrino Coffee Roaster. We will award one of you today at the end of the activity. You have to upload a story from this event to your Instagram and tag uai.internacional, peregrinocoffee.cl y uai-cl. Hashtag your city.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here ready for our International Coffee Break session number 4. My name is Flor Toledo, English Language Program Director in Viña del Mar, the English Program and International Relations Office from Adolfo Ibáñez University want to give you all the warmest welcome to this event. The International Coffee Break series is an invitation and also an opportunity to engage in conversation with international speakers and, of course, at the same time, put your English into practice. Today, we are very excited because it's New Zealand's Day, and Javiera Vicedo, Director of Education, Chile and Colombia at Education New Zealand, will be sharing some words with us.
Enamana, enareo, era orangatirama, tenakoto, tenakoto, tenakoto katoa. Kia ora, welcome. My first words in Maori, one of the 3 official languages of New Zealand. So it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I promised I'll be very brief. It's great thanks to the team, the international relations of the Universidad Adolfo Ibáñez, especially our close friend, Carlos Ramirez. Thanks, Flor, and all the team behind the scenes as well, Diego here for organizing this super interesting activity that we're more than welcome. And it's a privilege to be here, especially to hear from our 2 guests, Hamish and Jordan today. So for New Zealand, the place where it's called, when you can see the new day, you know, one of the first countries to celebrate New Year. It's a place where everybody's welcome, a country of 5 million people, but now becoming a center of innovation, of entrepreneurship. So it's a great pleasure that we can share all those stories today here with you. So that's all that I have to say. So welcome everyone. And if there's anything that we as an embassy or Education New Zealand can do for you, the door is always open right now. So welcome, and I hope that you really, really enjoyed the session. And once again, thanks for the invitation this afternoon.
Thank you, Javiera, for those words. Thank you also for sharing this video with us. We look forward to hear what Hamish and Jordan have for us today. So, well, we are also very proud because we have many students planning this event with us. We have students from Santiago and Viña. So please, guys, wave when I call your name. So we welcome Valentina, Daniela, Mercedes, Francisca, Niels, and Matthias. So they are helping us. So we are very happy because we count on them. And we are also happy because we have sponsors. We have Peregrino Coffee Roasters, and they have a prize for you. So please participate. I have here a slice, so you don't miss this opportunity. So please tag Peregrino Coffee.cl UAI Internacional, and please tell us where you are from. If you are from Viña, Santiago, or I don't know, anywhere else. Now, I want to welcome Niels. So Niels, how are you tonight?
For several years in high-growth tech electric startups in the US. He tripled the turnover of one of a private education company in Australia and expanded it to every state before it was even sold. He has grown Code Avengers to have customers such as schools, districts, states, and governments in more than 20 countries and had over 2 million individual users. We also have Jordan Halbert with us tonight. Jordan lived, studied, and worked for a number of years in Panama and Mexico. He specialized in Latin American business expansion. Now, he works with private education organizations and government entities from Mexico to Chile. But before we listen to our guest speakers, Carol, Director of English Program in Peñalolén, will tell us about what our first activity is.
Thank you very much, Niels. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So we will spend the next 10 minutes working in small groups. And we have just sent you a document, a Word document with a short activity. It's a question that we want you to. And one of our staff there waiting in the breakout rooms, and they will monitor the conversation and invite you to reflect on a few questions. So we encourage you to participate in English or in Spanish. As soon as you see a little box with the word entrar or join, you click on it and you will join your group. So let's get back together in a while. Okay, so I hope you all had a great time in your small groups. Welcome back. And so let's welcome our international guests now. So welcome Hamish and Jordan.
Hey, kia ora, really good to be here. Look, this is an interesting topic. I'm really pleasured to come and speak to you guys about it. Honestly, I want this to be an interactive conversation, and so I got a few questions to start the ball off. As we know, coronavirus has really disrupted things. I don't think that we're going to go back to how it was in education, in the workforce. It's changed for good, and I think it's a positive thing. I don't believe that there's going to be less jobs. I just believe that there's going to be a different skill set required for those jobs, and that's why it's a positive thing to sort of think ahead and prepare. I'm going to start simple though. I want to ask anyone in the audience, feel free to chime in. You can message me through, or you can actually just unmic yourself. The first question I want to ask is, what digital devices are you using on a daily basis? Phones, apps, for transport. I want to hear. I actually love Chile. I spent a lot of time in Santiago, right through to Valparaiso and Casablanca. I love it. I spent a bunch of time there, but I'd love to know from you guys what, on a daily basis, when you wake up first thing in the morning, I'm getting some coming in here, phone, iPad, laptop, computer, iPad, phone. computer, phone and laptop, PCs, mostly phone, Chromecast, PCs, laptops. Hey, as you keep firing those through, it's really apparent, like from his calculator, we got a little bit of change coming in here. From when you first wake up in the morning, how connected are you to the digital world? And that's a thing I think you really have to step back and understand. For example, just for me, first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, my alarm goes off, which is set on my phone. Boom, I'm up. I live in a pretty dark house. I live in the country. Sometimes I get my torch out on my phone to find my light in my room. Look, from that phone, you've got everything from the camera, to be used for video calling in and of itself, and the actual hard, I guess you could say, technical aspects of that phone. But what apps are we using? Me personally, like when I get up in the morning, I might be opening up my news feed to see what's going on with coronavirus, scrolling the news, whether it be consuming information through social media. I mean, you've got Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Depends if you want to wake up to something serious or if you want to wake up to something funny. Everyone's different. But look, in different places around the world, it's a pretty much go-to necessity. I've spent a lot of time in big cities, and say, for example, in New York, when you go out in the morning, Uber's your go-to. Taxis, you're not really calling taxis anymore. That's just me personally. You'll come out, you'll get on your phone, you'll order an Uber. Potentially, you might jump on a Lime scooter, depending on the distance you need to go, or you're gonna jump on the subway. A big thing too. I'm not sure how it's been for everyone on the call, but pretty much you can buy anything digitally now. Shopping, food, clothes, geez, you name it. If you buy it, it's going to show up at your door. It's pretty common. Coronavirus has really changed the dynamic there. It was cool to see some of the chats coming through here. Laptop's a big one. You know what I mean? You're going to jump on your laptop first thing. Funny story here in New Zealand, the first coronavirus case that came in. So we had heard about coronavirus, in China. We had, it was sort of a distant, far away thing at the time. And one of our workers, we have an office here, and one of our workers had just been on a trip to Bali. So she'd just been on a holiday. And so she comes back and we think nothing of it. We had a work event the next day. Everyone's coming, we're eating, enjoying our time. And just on a Friday night, I was going home and I got a phone call from my COO, and he said, well, the first airplane full of people with coronavirus had been detected in New Zealand. There was a bunch of people with coronavirus that actually come from Iran. And I get a call. I'm not oblivious to coronavirus, but I'm just in a relaxed state. I get a call. Hey, our worker was on that plane. She was only a few rows back, but from the first plane full of coronavirus to come to New Zealand. So before everyone was shut down, we were one of the first workplaces to shut down. I have to ring Friday night, ring all my workers, isolate from your families, lock yourself down. And this is before lockdown was common, you know what I mean? And so we didn't really know what to do. At the time, you couldn't get tested for it in New Zealand. It was super difficult to get a test, so she couldn't pass a test. And, we were just on ice. The reason I mentioned that is because that's where this remote working came in. You're talking about using a laptop on a daily basis. Lucky for us, being a digitally savvy company, we could transition to remote work pretty much seamlessly. But it was a shock that if we weren't prepared for, we would have had to shut down our business. You know what I mean? Instantly, no one could come into work. Government wasn't letting us work. If we couldn't, engage with our customers and our clients digitally, we would have been stuffed. So it's just a real crazy thing to see how fast the world can change and the skill sets you need can change. I'm still sort of talking about this though, and I really want you guys to think throughout this conversation, how connected are you to the digital world? Each day, whether it be your phone, whether it be your laptop for work, in your relaxation time, do you watch Netflix? Do you do a little bit of gaming? So for your pleasure, I guess, how are you interacting in that space? I know me, I like watching a little bit of YouTube. there's a whole range of different things that people do, and there's not a right or a wrong thing. However, it's really sort of confronting, I guess, if you step back and you were to actually personally write down and list each digital device you connect with on a daily basis, what apps you connect with on a daily basis for both pleasure, for work, and for school. And the reason I say this is because you can start to see how ingrained globally pretty much every person's life has become. And so that sort of leads into my next topic. Obviously, as individuals, we're quite connected to the digital space. But I really want to sort of a core part of what I want to address is what industries have been affected digitally and why and how have they been affected? Because when we're looking at the impact of coronavirus, we have to look at the impact of coronavirus, obviously, on the reality of work going forward. It's not what we're doing right now. It's, are we going to be prepared for what's coming in 6 months, 1 year, and 5 years' time? Because if you want to actually not only succeed, but thrive in the future, you have to think ahead and you have to be aware of what the changes are going on and what's happening. And so me personally, and Jordan, you can jump in whenever you want. I wanted to just really talk about the different industries and how such a broad range of industries you need a foundational level of digital skills for now. Just as I mentioned how you interact on an individual basis with technology on a daily basis, sometimes when you're not working in a specific sector or a specific industry, you might forget how digitally connected and how much change and disruption has happened, not only in the last 6 months since the coronavirus, that's been coming for the last couple of years. And this will give us a foundation to go into the next part of our talk where we discuss how coronavirus is going to accelerate these changes. And so feel free, guys, if you've got any questions, you can ask me, just unmic yourself, ask the questions. I'm happy for it to be interactive. But what I wanted to start with is very traditional industries. So when we think about the digital world affecting the workplace, often we go to the more common things that we can all see. However, traditional industries, and the reason I mention this is because I know in Chile, especially, you have a lot of farming. I know there's big dairy farming organizations. I work with people who produce a lot of milking, and they call it agri-tech or farming technology that actually gets exported to Chile. And so in farming and agriculture, which traditionally, like if you grew up on a farm or if you grew up in a rural environment, you didn't really need a digital skill set. You didn't really need to understand tech. You needed to understand how to work hard. You needed to understand weather and fertilizer and a whole range of different things, but you didn't need digital skills. And look, it's just completely changed. And so obviously it's a sector called agri-tech, but I'm just going to mention a few innovations that I've seen just so we can start thinking about how really traditional industries have been changed. There's actually a company, they're called Halter. They're based in New Zealand, but I know there's a few companies globally who are doing this as well. And what they have is they have every single cow, if you have a dairy farm, so milking cows, every single cow has a GPS collar on it. And from that GPS collar, you can not only monitor and track your animals, you can see if they're sick or lame. You can see if they're on heat, so you can optimize their breeding. You no longer need fences on your farm. It's fenceless farms. You can get them and move them, obviously, from your laptop. It allows them to become familiar with the signs that the collar provides. Look, in addition to that, there's drones to check on your crops and your farms. In New Zealand and in a lot of other countries, you have big, large ranches with rugged terrain. Gone are the days of having to ride a motorbike or a horse in some stages to go and check on your animals. You can drone up there, you can see, you can monitor. Literally, you've got soil quality tests, you've got water quality tests, all provided directly to your device as a farmer. And look, it goes into the agriculture industry too. There's fruit picking robots. That's just the start. There's such a drastic change happening in farming. And the reason I use that is because it's very easy to see that if you look outside in a rural economy, no one is using horse and plows to farm. It's gone, it's changed, and it will never come back. And the changes we're seeing in farming are going to be the same. People aren't going to go back to horse and plows, and people aren't going to go back to just to traditional ways of farming once these changes come in. The next thing I'd like to discuss, just trying to keep it broad, is the medical sector. You know, a lot of people think, okay, I want to be a doctor, I want to work as a chemist, I want to work as a physiotherapist. Well, what skill sets am I going to really need in the medical sector? Am I just preparing for surgery and am I learning about health? Look, not going forward. They call it Meditech, but just as an example, earlier this year, artificial intelligence detected breast cancer better than doctors for the first time. And so that's drastically going to change diagnosis. As a doctor, are you going to be relying on your own skill set, or are you going to be relying on medical tools to provide you information to make very specific and more accurate diagnosis for patients? Look, in addition to that, there's a whole suite of things. They're practicing life-changing surgeries using virtual reality. It's a pretty difficult thing if you are, how do you practice a heart transplant? How do you practice some of these more critical procedures? Because it's not, you don't want to make mistakes. And so it's drastically changed not only the final outcomes of the medical professionals, but that learning and that training process in the university sectors and, you know, in their on work placements. So look, that's just an example of the medical sector. And I'm going to continue this just so we can actually try to understand the breadth of disruption that technology is pretty much impacting every facet of the working world. Look, a pretty traditional one that it's quite common, but people don't really understand the impact it's going to have is warehousing and distribution. And so we actually work with Amazon here in New Zealand, Amazon Web Services, obviously, but I've lived in America and in Mexico. Jordan actually does a lot of work with our Mexican partners, and we're rolling out our products throughout Mexico. And Mexico has a lot of warehousing and distribution operations that distribute literally products not only to the United States, but to Canada and south towards the whole American continent. And those warehousing and those distribution hubs have just become automated. It is crazy to see the automation that is being implemented on a large scale. This is tens of thousands of workers who have been losing their jobs. Because at the end of the day, those machines don't call in sick. They work 24 hours a day. They have no smoker. They have no lunch break. It's hard to compete. It's hard to compete, you know, like when someone provides you that option, no one's complaining. No one, you know, it's pretty good. And so don't get me wrong, I don't believe that all of those jobs are lost for good, but what I do believe is there's going to be a massive reskilling. There's not going to be less jobs, but you are going to need to have a new skill set for the changing job environment, which is important to consider. Look, in addition to warehousing, I want to talk about construction. So they actually believe that 70% of the world's wealth is in property. And so I'm talking about large scale infrastructure right down to individual housing. And so construction is a very, very big industry. It's not often talked about in the digital space or in the tech sense because, you know, more often than not, it's just a hands-on service people are building globally. However, there's so many innovations in this space. Like I actually know some guys, a massive multi-billion-dollar company who right now in China have 3D aerated printed concrete. So they can print you up to 15-story buildings. Literally, they'll print it, they'll put it on a ship and it'll arrive. And instead of taking 2 years to build a 15-story building, it will take between 3 to 4 months to put that into place. Everything ready to go. And so it's drastically going to change. Like this technology, it's just being invented and it's just coming on a like sort of cost-effective, affordable scale. But when this becomes mainstream in 3 to 5 years, the way we build it's not going to go back. It's really, really going to change. And even that construction management apps, look, we're on Zoom and it's an effective meeting. We can work and interact with each other globally. And it's the same thing in construction. On large scale building projects, you can monitor your workers. You might have 1,000 workers in your team. You can monitor their progress very specifically and all at a simultaneous pace with the apps that are available now. So construction in of itself, and traditionally, I mean, a lot of my friends here in New Zealand, they left school when they were 15 years old. And they went into the building or they went into the agriculture sectors, and they didn't have these sorts of skills. But the reality of it is now is governments and individuals are going to have to push to ensure that they have that they're ready for these changes. Jordan actually showed me too, transitioning into the next sector, and I want to talk about a broad range of sectors. Like I say, man, the impact is going to be insane. Jordan had a meme. I'm sort of laughing. I don't want to laugh, but it was quite sad. And so what it was a janitor or a cleaner, and they were cleaning. They had the mop and they were literally mopping the floor. And then it was a step back from a photograph with a janitor in one corner. And on the other side of that photo was, it was an automated cleaning machine. A robot that is cleaning malls, and it was the exact moment it felt like when you looked at his face that he realized he's got no more job. His job's gone. It's never coming back. He was mopping the floor looking at something that is going to take his job. And that's just here recent. And these are the sort of changes, very traditional jobs like cleaning. If someone can create an automated way to do that, it's 10 out of 10 times that mall owner or that shop owner is going to take that choice. And so these are pretty confronting changes for a lot of people in a lot of different economies. And so we just have to be sort of insightful through this process that actual disruption is going to cause. And look, in addition to that cleaning, this is actually just this morning. I follow, if you ever want some up-to-date tech news, TechCrunch, pretty good place if you want to see what a lot of the biggest innovations coming out globally are. But literally just this morning, I read an article from, in the US, there's a chain of fast food restaurants. It's called White Castle. Anyway, they make these little burgers. They're pretty nice. We don't have them here in New Zealand, but they literally have a robot that's doing all their cooking. So all the parts of that work that had the potential for health and safety hazards. So if you're going to be cooking in deep frying oil or burgers or chips, that company knows they have the potential to be sued for, accidents that happen on the workplace. They've developed a robot to cook a large part of their menu. Pretty much all of their fast food menu can be automated. And it's, once a company like McDonald's integrates this sort of technology, it's going to go global real quick. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, I'm not sure about your guys' experience, but here in New Zealand, maybe one of the first jobs you get when you're young could be in a fast food restaurant. It can be your introduction into the workforce, And a lot of these introductionary jobs, they are the jobs that are being automated. And so when we think about just the economy going forward, we have to be aware that, so when people are first entering their first job, how are we going to transition and how are we going to ensure that they can get a skill set to become productive members of society when a lot of those jobs have been taken away or have been changed? Look, I'm going to continue, obviously, from fast food. And the reason I want to discuss these is, like I say, the context is so broad and it's global. For the first time ever, because technology can spread so quickly, communication is almost simultaneously. When an innovation happens in one country, within 3 months, it can spread throughout the whole world. And I think that's a really big change, that the pace of information sharing that has increased the sort of tech adoption. These are pretty common ones, but I do want to mention them. And that's why I sort of did leave them a little bit longer. But in accommodation, personally, I love travel. I'm not traveling anywhere at the moment. I'm in my little island, which is not a bad place to be stuck. But look, even if you're traveling within your own country to a neighboring city, Are you going to stay at a hotel for 3 times the price of an Airbnb? Not sure. You know what I mean? Very traditional industries like accommodation have been really disrupted. And it's not only Airbnb, we have Book a Batch, we have a whole range of different applications that have really changed the accommodation industry forever. Gone are the days, you know, and on the positive side of that, if you have a house and it's a little bit expensive to pay for, you can get some supplementary income. You know, you can hack that housing market. And in the same sense, like I had mentioned earlier with transport, both taxis and buses have been really disrupted. I mean, Uber, it's not only Uber, there's Lyft, there's Lime scooters, there's so many different modes of transport that you can just rent. In essence, you're renting a mode of transport for a short-term journey, and it's really changed the way people move, the way they visualize transportation in and of itself. Like, and when we're looking at transportation, there's actually billions of dollars being spent simultaneously right now in almost a race from Waymo, which is owned by Google, from Amazon in and of itself, from Tesla for automation within automated cars, you know. And so to an extent, I would say within 5 years, you'll be getting an Uber that doesn't have an Uber driver in it. And it'll be taking you, you know, to your location like that. And so the transportation industry is really going to change. There's tens of thousands of people who are employed as bus drivers, taxi drivers. It'll be interesting. I think trains still have their place, you know, for large scale mass transport, but anything that can be disrupted will be disrupted, is sort of how I see it. Then I sort of go, I mean, I go from transport, and like I say, I want to keep this broad, and I'm going to ask a question at the end of this one, so we can have a sort of intergroup discussion. But entertainment has drastically changed. This will be my final one. When we're looking at entertainment, Spotify, YouTube, the music we listen to, gaming, Netflix, pretty much everyone is screen time. That's where the people's eyes are, and that's where people are engaged. And so it's really interesting to think how tourism companies are going to be affected by coronavirus, and how these digital changes are going to affect the entertainment business. Look, I'll just finish there. I know it's time for some questions, and I'm really looking forward to this part, and I'll get Jordan to help answer too. I was really just trying to stem the understanding of how drastic this change is coming. With coronavirus, I believe we've had 6 years of tech adoption in 6 months. These changes are actually only going to accelerate because now we have mass understanding and adoption of these concepts. So is there any questions? I mean, if it is question time, you fire them away. Me or Jordan, it's up to you.
First of all, before the questions, thank you, Hamish and Jordan, for such an amazing talk. Now we would like to invite our audience to share their insights with us by either raising your hand or typing your questions in the chat box.
Yes, thank you very much. So we have a question, and this question is, considering that undergraduate students have a heavy workload, how can they develop their digital skills on a daily basis? Are there any practical tips?
Hey, that's actually a really good question. And I can completely understand where you're coming from there. To be honest, like, we actually offer a platform that helps with that. That's what we do. But the reality of the situation is in every day, there's 24 hours. There is 24 hours in a day. When shifts like this come, you're going to have to carve out a little bit of time. And don't get me wrong, I understand how busy people are, and I'm not going to lie and pretend it's easy, but we have an online platform that you can use. I'll plug that. But in addition to that, you can get some really good insights if you watch 2 YouTube channels a day. I mean, 2 YouTube video clips. You can get it from YouTube, which is a simple form. Maybe you're driving to work. Maybe you're on the train to work and you want to watch a quick little video to upskill yourself. That's completely fine. A lot of these platforms are, you know, digitally based. I know for me personally, Spotify is pretty good. There's some really good podcasts. You know what I mean? You can plug that in. Maybe you're doing a workout at the gym and you can double down. You can get a little bit of fitness bit of muscles on, and you can listen to things that can upskill you too. So for me personally, what I do is just try and maximize that downtime, get some headphones in and use that time to get some insights that I wouldn't otherwise got. Hey, I can't hear you. I'm not sure if you're muted.
Mercedes?
Yeah, sorry. There was another question, mainly referred to nowadays. How do you think that with all this change because of the pandemic and COVID, how has this affected like the globalization and leadership in general, would you say?
Hey, that's a really good question. First, I want to touch on how it's affected leadership. I mean, you guys can see the effect that social media, information censorship has had on governments around the world. When you're seeing a mass protest erupt, the only way that you can protest against someone if you can mobilize tens of thousands of people at once. And so these platforms have allowed protests and disruptions to almost simultaneously take place globally on a range of different issues. I know in Chile, you've had disruptions. We've had disruptions in New Zealand. I know in Southeast Asia, for example, in Thailand, there's some big disruptions going on there right now. I know in America, you know what I mean? There's a lot of interesting things that have happened in the US and of itself. So how has the digital world affected leadership? It's put a lot of pressure on them. It has. People's voices can be unified, for good and for bad though. You know, some of these companies, they do censor some information that might be true. Look, in some locations, for example, in Eastern Europe, not all information that comes out is freely accessible. You know, a lot of truthful facts can be hidden in different places around the world. They can hide information from their people, which is pretty bad. So the digital world has put a lot more pressure on governments or they have to be open because people are going to find out, is what I'm saying in that sense. What was the second part of that question? Can you mention that again?
No, it was mainly referred to how globalization has been affected by like this change in technology and like the dependence and COVID-19.
Yeah. Look, there's some benefits to a global economy, but there's also some negatives, in my opinion. Just speaking in an honest sense, if you're a company with a big enough incentive, you can push your agenda onto people of multiple different countries at once. And so there can be really good outcomes for it. There can be, when I'm talking about globalization, there can be, you know, people raising money to help people in poverty who have been affected by losing their jobs on a global scale. Rich countries can mobilize to provide resources to poorer countries who have been affected more sharply from, you know, coronavirus job losses and famines and things like that. But on a negative scale, look, some people, if they have the right amount of money and influence, they can push agendas and cause disruption that wouldn't otherwise happen. So there is some bad effects. And part of that is because when coronavirus kicked in, almost simultaneously, everyone in the world started looking at their phones and their computers a lot more. And so your ability to influence a large population really, really increased because now globally, pretty much everyone was connected to a device. So yeah, there's some positives and negatives. That's probably where I'll say that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your answer, Hamish. So we have another question. So automatization is present everywhere nowadays. And how can we prevent automatization from taking over jobs and disrupting economies around the world? Are there any ethics that should be established to prevent unemployment?
So you're talking about automation. Is that? I honestly think, look, unfortunately, the reality of the situation is you're just going to have to, en masse, we need to reskill a lot of people. A lot of people are going to need to increase their skill sets and they're going to have to adopt the mindset that the technical world can be something that they can enter. It can be something that they can learn these skills. They can learn I told the group just before we jumped on this wider chat, I grew up here in New Zealand in the country, and I didn't have the internet at my home. I grew up on a farm. And so coming into this world, it was really difficult for me. Like I couldn't type. I didn't have an email address until I was 18 years old. I didn't have social media until I was in my 20s. I really, really struggled with the digital world. Like it was so confusing for me, you know? But I also realized, and the reason I go back to that, growing up on a farm, no one's farming with a horse and a plow. No farmer is riding their horses to plow their pads. It's not going to go back. And so I think if you want to be successful in the digital future, you're going to have to spend some time upskilling and learning these skill sets. And I think there is some responsibility on governments globally to do that. I believe government in and of themselves need to put resources and support behind this to ensure that their people have the right skill set for this changing, economic environment.
Actually, I'll add a few words to that. In terms of automation, I've read a lot of things about kind of two sides or two possible solutions. You have people that are saying that, solutions like universal basic income. I believe one of the presidential candidates and actually a political party here in New Zealand has really been pushing that. And then you have other people on the other side saying that, automation may take jobs away, but other jobs will be created. And they give examples, throughout history, there's jobs that no longer exist. But, the amount of jobs that exist in any one market doesn't decrease or increase. It stays the same. They just constantly change. So there's kind of two sides of the story. Some say that we need to be proactive and government should take control and, provide something like universal basic income. And others are saying that the job market will just change. And as a result of that change, people will just adapt these new skills. And something that in the small breakout session, I was with Carol and Vicente, who is also in this call. He shared a really important point that I liked, that the younger generation, well, I guess you guys are the younger generation, you guys that are studying, you were born in this world, in this digital world. You guys grew up knowing it. It's kind of like second nature to you. Those digital skills you kind of grew up learning, or no one actually taught them to you. You already had social media, you already had smartphones, tablets. It was the world that you were born into. And he mentioned that there's a kind of a big gap in digital skills between the younger generation and the older generation. And by the older generation, I mean, those that were already adults when internet became readily available to most people. And so that big gap and divide in digital skills may not be necessarily, as I guess hard for younger people to adjust to, but people that, maybe a little bit older. A good example would be, I have an uncle and auntie, they're in their late 50s. And when there was a lockdown here, all the banks closed. And so they traditionally done all their banking in person. They would go to the bank in person, cash checks and things like that. And I had to go over and teach them how to use online banking. So when we talk about digital skills, it isn't necessarily meaning everyone has to, be a programmer or a web developer. These digital skills can be as simple as, how to use Zoom, how to do online banking. A lot of governments, a lot of the services that they provide, whether it's getting passports, police clearance certificates, all of those services that traditionally you'd go in person are now done 100% online. And so that leaves a big group of the population that never got those basic digital skills. They are unable to access those basic services. So I think that's, a really, really important thing. It's not just about people who are entering the workforce or undergraduate students that are studying. It's also those people that are already, maybe missed that opportunity to grow up in the internet age, and they need to also upskill and learn those very, very basic digital skills. So yeah, it's not all about, everyone becoming programmers or everyone becoming web developers or software engineers. You have accountants, business professionals that don't need to know how to write programs, but they need to know how the internet works, how the cloud works, what are the limitations, what things they can explore. So I think that's something that's, very important to keep in mind, that this is not just affecting those that are going into jobs, but those that, are already there or maybe even retired, and to access those basic necessities, those basic services, they need help as well.
Thank you for your answer, Julian. Okay, now heading on to our final question. Vicente?
Oh, I didn't know I was the final question. It was for about
I love that
Jordan.
space background.
About it's the HDF, the Hubble Deep Field. But about what Jordan said. There's some skills that elderly people doesn't know, but there are also another skills that we as young people don't know also. I think that this generation is the first generation that will have a lower IQ as their fathers, as their parents. So that's a huge problem, because yes, we know how to use our phones or earphones or even our calculators, but if we don't know how to change a tire or doing banking in person, that's another problem. And as we are now I'm now in my bedroom, but this is a cave where I have all my technology, but I know that outside there's a complete other world, and it's much bigger than my phone, and I have to connect to that one in order to be a better person. That not being disrespectful, just than the world is much bigger than a Zoom meeting, and I know that we are all here, but there's some other important stuff.
Hey, I'll just give a quick comment on that. I actually completely agree. I work every day in upskilling people in a technical world, but the reality of it is I want to change people from being users and consumers to being builders and creators. When you scroll through social media, when you look at Netflix, you're just consuming technology. But do you know how it works? Can you build and create an app that can help people? And when you're a builder and creator, you're always going to work with people in a team environment. You're always going to be outside and actually trying to create solutions. Number one, in the workplace. But number two, I'm a big believer that you have to manage and monitor your mental health. You know what I mean? You have to realize that interfamily and personal relationships can never be replaced. They can never be replaced by technology. And I agree with you that as we're going forward, we're going to have to be really aware of monitoring and understanding both the positive opportunities that technology create and maximizing them, and also the negative impacts. We can't be delusional and believe that there's not going to be any negative impacts from technology. I even know after we had quite a strict lockdown here in New Zealand where, we couldn't leave our homes. We couldn't go only to one store. It was very, very strict. And a lot of people started suffering with mental health. They couldn't connect with people. They couldn't go outside and do the activities they loved. And man, it was a real struggle. So I think going forward, there is a big place for en masse people to realize that they need to put their screens down and they need to get outside and interact with that real world. And it's going to be a blend. I do believe in the human race. We've done some amazing things in our history, and this is a transitionary time where there's not one right solution. People are going to have to adapt and understand both positives and negatives of both. And I'm sure in the coming months and years, there'll be a sort of balance out where people can find an equilibrium, where they can hopefully thrive. So that was a really, really good point though.
Just to add on to your answer, Hamish, I think what Vicente was also talking about were we have the advantage of these, tech skills, or, these digital skills that a younger generation has raised on the internet has acquired. But there's also, those soft skills or the experience of the older generations that we can learn from. So, those soft skills, those interpersonal skills, it's a little bit harder in person. It's easier to read body language, hear tones of voice, meet people. but a lot of the concepts or principles used to create relations, but business relationships with people, you know, in another continent, are still relevant even over a Zoom call. So, you know, so learning from people who have that experience may not have the digital experience, but their knowledge and experience can still be applied in a digital world. So I think that was something that Vicente was referring to, that I think definitely, you know, just having these skills doesn't mean we are better than the older generation or that we know more than them. If anything, we need to learn what they have learned and combine it with our digital skills and the knowledge that we have acquired to really take advantage of both worlds.
Definitely. Well, we would like to thank our guests for sharing their wonderful experience this evening. If you'd like to keep in touch, Hamish, Jordan, if you wanna send via chat, an email, or a way that the audience can contact you guys. And also, would you guys like to share some final thoughts with us?
Hey guys, 100%. I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. If you want to connect with me, LinkedIn, probably your best way. Who knows? We hire people all over the place. We have one Pablo on the line right now. He actually is our representative in Chile. We actually do work there. Jordan works with our partners, and well, they're expanding through Mexico and Peru and a range of different Latin American companies. So, hey, get at me. Really appreciate your time though. Thanks heaps. Check us out, codeavengers.com. And I look forward to hopefully meeting some of you guys in the future.
Thank you.
And now, who are the winners of our Pellegrino coffee? Do you know who the winner is, guys? Matias or Mercedes?
Yes, we surely do. But first, thank you very much, Jordan and Hamish. And thanks everyone for joining us today. And before we leave, we are more than happy to award one of our students for her active participation on Instagram. Daniela Villarroel, congratulations. You're today's winner of Peregrino Coffee Roasters. We'll be contacting you soon.
Thank you.
And thanks again, everybody, for participating in our fourth and last coffee break talk. We are very happy to have planned this 4-series activity for the first time at UAE in such a successful way. However, this idea would not have been a real contribution if it wasn't for the active participation of this audience. Thank you again for your participation. We will see you soon in the next cycle of the International Coffee Break series. Before you go, however, please answer a quick survey we have shared with you. It won't take you more than 2 minutes, and we want to know your opinion. Thank you again, and see you soon.
Thank you guys for coming tonight. It's a pleasure to have you all here.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. A pleasure.
Have a good night.